Welcome to the Rider Guys, episode 4. Sweet victory! The Riders finally get their first win of the season. They're 1-2. They beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats for the first ever regular season win at New Mosaic Stadium, 37-20 last weekend. It was awesome. The Riders really, I think, put it together, a complete game. It was really nice to watch. What'd you think, Lee?
I thought it was like an improvement from the last two games that the Riders played.
I agree.
One, because like our defense, we were finally starting to rush the quarterback a lot better. You know, Kolaris, the pocket was constantly closing.
He had happy feet.
He did have happy
all
feet,
game,
and you know we sacked him a lot, and you know, we just shut him down. Like that's the thing if we can do that to especially like a guy like Bolivar Mitchell, if we can make him having to scramble out of the pocket and stuff like that, we're gonna have a better chance of having giving him 5 seconds in the pocket and him picking us apart and having a 400-yard game, right?
We had pressure with. There was times where it was just a 3-man rush and we had pressure on Kolaris and AC Leonard and Jefferson both had I thought played really well. It was nice to see. It's interesting because we had talked about the fact that Chris Jones's defenses, I think in our last episode we had mentioned that he used to be very aggressive and bring the house a lot more than he has. And I was listening actually on Calgary radio, Sport Talk Radio, and they were talking about the CFL this year and saying how it's become very commonplace, especially this year, that a lot of teams are only rushing 3 and they're dropping 9 guys back and they're forcing the quarterbacks to beat them. And that's why there hasn't been a lot of rushing as much. And yeah, it's just sort of an interesting philosophy that's really sort of taken all the teams by storm this year. They seem to all be doing it consistently. Anyways, I agree with what Liam said. I think we had Kolaris under pressure pretty much all night long. He had happy feet definitely all night long, and the boys played well. The first quarter, we completely shut them down. I mean, our defense only gave them 13 points all game, so that was very impressive. Was there anybody on the defense or offense, for that matter, that really stood out for you?
AC Leonard, he had 2 tackles for that game, and I thought he did pretty well. There was one play especially where they were running up and he kind of tried to kick out and AC Leonard tackled him. So
when he got him from behind there, that was nice because that would have been probably a big gain. He showed some real athleticism on that. I thought Josh Bartel played really well too. I mean that coffin corner kick that he had in the first quarter to hem him in, a little bit risky I guess with a guy like Banks there, because if he manages to get over and catch that thing on the run, he could bust it up the sideline. But it was a beautiful kick, rolled out on the 4 or 5 yard line. Yeah. That was fantastic. I guess the pick 6 there by Glenn really, through the first 3 weeks, the only thing I can really say negative about Glenn is I'd like to see a few less interceptions. That pick 6, he just needed to deliver that ball a little bit earlier. He hesitated just a bit, gave that DB enough time to come across and step in front and pick that ball up.
Another standout for me, again on the defensive side, was Willie Jefferson. His pass rush was really good. He had 4 tackles, one of them being a sack. He could have had another one, but he lined up offside, so he only had 1 that game. He was again with the same thing with AC Leonard, he's really fast and he's really athletic, so he's a guy who can, if you're trying to run to the outside, he's going to be the first guy
their contain is pretty good
taking on, unless the D-line or unless the offensive lineman blocks him pretty well. But he's done really well. I'm really glad that we signed him again. He's a good asset to have on the team.
Isn't he leading the league in quarterback hurries?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is impressive. Maybe he has 2 sacks.
Which is when you make the quarterback have to, I guess,
leave the pocket, throw the ball away, make him uncomfortable, right? Basically, that's what it is, I believe. Yeah.
And then here are some stats on the leaders for the offensive side. So Kevin Glenn threw 32 for 43, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Big interception.
Which was the pick 6 for
Take that out of there, and I think the big thing, if I can jump in for a sec, Lee, the big thing that really impressed me with Kevin Glenn and the Rider offense was that anytime Hamilton did anything in this game, they would come back and answer it with a drive right down the field, and they were getting touchdowns more often than not. There was some field goals missed in there as well, but the big thing was even after that pick 6, Glenn pushed them down the field and they got a touchdown after that. That I think was key because
Well,
that was huge because that could have been a real deflator for the whole team. And they just picked the ball up, drove it down the field, scored a touchdown.
You have to do that. You can't keep worrying about what just happened. You have to just, okay, it happened. It's not going to happen again. For Naaman Roosevelt, thank you, Kevin Glenn, for passing to him more this game. Thank you. He had 10 receptions on 167 yards. And that's what happens when you pass to your best receiver on the team.
I think he's going to, Naaman Roosevelt, I think, that was his breakout game for this season. I think it's just going to be just smooth sailing moving forward. That guy is, he's a possession receiver. I mean, he's our go-to guy on second and long. A lot of those receptions
He's our go-to guy whenever we pass.
Well, pretty much. You need a catch, but I mean, second and long in the CFL, second and long, you need a guy. We used to have a guy called Donald Narcisse. I think anybody that's a little bit older, like me, will remember him. He was a great possession receiver. You needed an 8-yard out for a first down. You could rely on Don every time, and Narco would just be there. He had great hands. Roosevelt is cut from that same mold.
He has a little bit more speed, I would say, but
you're too young to remember Donald Narcisse, but he probably is faster than Narco was. Yeah, but Narco could run a great pattern and had wonderful hands. And same thing though as Roosevelt. I mean, if it's second and long, that's the guy you're going to go to, and he's going to get you that first down just about every time. I think he only had one drop in the game. Usually he catches that ball, but nobody's perfect, right? Anybody else on the offensive side of the ball that stood out for you?
Cameron Marshall did. I thought Cameron Marshall, even if that guy is only getting 4 yards on a run, it's the hardest running ever.
He's
if
a beast.
He gets hit behind the line of scrimmage, you're not going to hit him backwards. You're going to be on your back. Even if you take him down, he's going to go an extra 4 yards.
He's got a great motor. He keeps going.
The reason I love him, and he's just such a good football player, is because he's not one of those guys who dances. He hits you. If he needs a first down, he's going to hit you until he gets that first down.
He squares his shoulders up, puts his head, and he just goes. Yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. I think we really found something with him.
The only time he ever cuts is when he does a speed cut to get to the other side to get away from somebody, and that's fine. You do that.
He doesn't dance.
He's a one-cut running back, which is the best type of running back you can have. The one-cut running backs are the best type of running back. A one-cut running back is a running back who will usually only cut when they need to or just once, right? So if they're coming up and a linebacker's right there and they're coming this way, he'll cut to try to get away from him, right? That's what he's doing. He's not going to go and try to dance around and get the first down. He just goes, puts his head down, and will hit you. And usually, if you're on the defense, you're falling backwards.
Obviously, we're going into the bye week right now. Calgary is our opponent a week from this coming weekend. So I think that's going to be a tough challenge. Really glad that they got the win, but I really think that they can do it. I think that if they can pressure Bo Levi and put some pressure on him, give him happy feet a little bit, make him maybe throw some balls that he doesn't want to. I think our defense is really starting to come together, and our offense. Calgary's got a good defense as well, but I think that the one thing that I've liked about Kevin Glenn and the McAdoo offense that they've been running so far is they take what the defense gives them. They don't necessarily have to stretch the field out all the time. I mean, they'll go underneath. They'll take the nickel and dime stuff, and if it's there, and to me, that's how you sustain drives. That's how you wear down defenses.
That's recently though.
It is, but they're coming into their own as well, right? Still early.
McAdoo was throwing. He would have a play. It was a wide receiver screen on 2nd and 12. You don't run a wide receiver screen on 2nd and 12 unless that wide receiver is known to get 15 yards on that wide receiver screen.
Just sort of going around the league a little bit and talking about what's going on. The one thing that has kind of bothered me a little bit here is the refereeing. I think the CFL refs have always had a tendency to throw the flag way too early and way too quick. Kickoff returns, they won't even necessarily see anything, but a guy will go down and they'll turn their head and see a guy on the turf. Therefore, there must have been a penalty, and they throw the flag. And there was actually an example of that in the Winnipeg game there, where there was a second kickoff return for a touchdown, and it was called back for what was an absolutely brutal call, and it changed the game. And I think, as a matter of fact, there was one of those on television $1 million 2 kickoffs in a game, and I think that individual would have been up to win $1 million, and that ref took $1 million out of that individual's. I couldn't imagine if that was me. I would have lost my mind. It was a terrible call. Anyways, refs, call it if it's there. That's what the challenge flags are for. If you miss a call, the coach has the opportunity to throw a challenge flag. Don't be throwing the flag and taking it out of the player's hands. Do your job, and in my opinion, by doing their job is when you hardly notice that they're there. I just think that sometimes there's just too many flags. They throw them too darn easy. I think that in the defensive backfield, they don't allow for any contact sometimes, and there's always going to be a little bit of bumping. There's always going to be a little bit of hand fighting. That's football. It's a contact sport. That's the way things are, and I think that these guys tend to throw the flag a little too quickly. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now. That's all I wanted to say. Anything you want? Yeah, so I guess we're going to see on the flip side of the Rider Stampeder game. We're in the middle of the bye week here right now, and we're excited. We're hoping that the Riders can come into to Calgary here and lay one on them. We would love to see nothing more. I think the Stamps are going to be ready. They're licking their wounds after that loss in Montreal yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. So until next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Go Riders!